You think you feel love when your chest hammers and your thoughts spin faster than your heartbeat, when every word feels like a spark, when silence becomes unbearable because absence itself feels like pain. You confuse passion for attachment, drama for devotion, and chaos for closeness. Because the mind has a way of translating intensity into meaning. You remember the nights when your phone buzzed and your stomach flipped, when the very idea of them existing without you felt unbearable, and you called it love. But sometimes, intensity is a mirror for your own unmet needs, a reflection of longing, not an echo of mutual care. Psychology tells us that our brains are wired to interpret strong stimuli as significance. Dopamine floods when someone reacts unpredictably, adrenaline spikes when emotions swing, and oxytocin whispers in the quiet spaces between chaos. That's chemistry, not commitment. That's neurobiology masquerading as devotion. You think your heart is tethered to theirs, but maybe it's just tethered to the rush, the fear, the uncertainty. This is the first sign. You mistake thrill for trust. The nights that felt electric, where texts arrived like pulses of life, were never about security. They were about the spike, the surge, the illusion of meaning. And now, as you sit in your quiet room, noticing the absence of that flurry, you wonder if love is supposed to feel calm, like a soft pulse that hums rather than explodes. This is the whisper psychology gives you. Your nervous system craves consistency, rhythm, and predictability. True attachment forms in slow currents, not stormy waters. You learn that intensity can be addictive, and addiction is not love. The second sign emerges in your reflection, in the little knots of tension that form at the back of your mind when you think about them. You notice how often you apologize for them, bend in directions you wouldn't otherwise bend, erase boundaries you know are sacred. Psychology labels this conditional selfhood, when your identity becomes negotiable for someone else's approval. You were always a person who valued autonomy, who thrived in the quiet spaces of your own mind, but somewhere between late-night calls and hurried confessions, you start to feel that your thoughts, your preferences, your very moods are secondary. You mistake the sheer intensity of your willingness to give, to absorb, to accommodate, for the depth of connection. But giving without reciprocity, bending without acknowledgement, is a sign of imbalance. Human attachment thrives in mutuality. It grows in the soil of recognition, not in the suffocating vines of self-erasure. You remember the times when you cancelled your plans because their emotional state dictated yours, when you swallowed your own exhaustion to soothe their storm. You called it devotion. But psychology whispers that love is a partnership, not a performance, and that intensity without boundaries is not love. It is longing masquerading as sacrifice. Then comes the third sign, and it hides in your thoughts like a shadow, subtle but persistent. You crave drama because it feels alive. You replay arguments, relive confrontations, and cling to conflict as if it were proof of care. Your mind equates emotional turbulence with depth because the hippocampus, the part of the brain that encodes memory, remembers strong emotional experiences vividly. Chemistry and cognition trick you into thinking that the moments of tension were moments of intimacy. You confuse storm clouds with sunlight. You remember nights spent awake, stomach twisting in worry, heart racing in fear, and tell yourself this proves intensity, proves commitment, proves love. But psychology teaches that healthy attachment is measured in comfort, in safety, in the quiet understanding that someone can exist beside you without burning you out. Drama is not devotion. It is a misinterpretation of energy. And slowly, in your calm hours, you start to notice the pattern. Your mind thrills to upheaval, not to steady presence. Your nervous system interprets unpredictability as significance. This realization is soft, almost imperceptible, but transformative. Love is not a jolt. Love is the gentle hum beneath the chaos, not the chaos itself. The fourth sign is subtle, wrapped in your own insecurities. You fear solitude more than you fear loss. You cling not to them because of what they give, but because of what their absence leaves behind. A hollow silence that echoes with your own unprocessed longing. Psychologists call this anxious attachment. You feel compelled to fill empty spaces with connection, any connection, even if it burns you. You remember staying awake, refreshing messages, checking for signs, wondering if absence equals abandonment. Your mind equates presence with validation, and intensity feels like proof of existence. But what psychology offers is a gentler truth. Your selfhood is not contingent on someone else's proximity. You can survive, thrive, and feel full even in the quiet. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a space for your nervous system to stabilize, for your emotional regulation to rest, for your mind to distinguish between longing and love. You start to notice how often you sacrifice inner peace for the flicker of connection, how often intensity becomes a substitute for emotional maturity. And in this quiet awareness, you learn a profound truth. Love does not demand that you fear absence, and love does not require that you erase yourself to exist. The fifth sign is perhaps the hardest to see because it hides in the memory of tenderness. You remember the highs, not the patterns. You can recall the moments when their smile ignited your chest, the way their words made your thoughts spiral, the magnetic pull that kept you tethered. But memory is selective, and the mind edits the story. Cognitive psychology reminds us that the brain prioritizes emotionally charged experiences over ordinary ones. You remember the fire but forget the frost. You recall the midnight texts but forget the mornings when your needs were minimized, dismissed, or forgotten. This sign is subtle because it is seductive. The human mind naturally magnifies passion, erases discomfort, and creates narratives of romance that may not reflect reality. You remember being seen in flashes but forget being unheard in hours. Love is not the flash of recognition. It is the consistent acknowledgement, the steady embrace, the ongoing respect for your mind and body. In this awareness, psychology and empathy meet. Your brain may deceive, but your self-compassion can guide you. You begin to honor patterns, not peaks. You notice what feels nourishing versus what feels toxic. You start to ask, am I in love, or am I addicted to being seen, chased, and momentarily adored? And so, as you sit with this gentle unwrapping of your mind, you begin to understand the language of intensity versus love. You breathe slowly, noticing the way your chest rises and falls, the quiet rhythm of your own heartbeat that has nothing to do with someone else's volatility. You recognize that the nervous system thrives in calm, that boundaries are acts of self-kindness, that drama is not devotion. You observe your cravings for thrill, your patterns of surrender, your fear of absence, and your selective memory. And in this observation, something soft blooms: awareness. Not judgment, not shame, not guilt, only awareness. You begin to see yourself, your mind, your longing, your humanity, and it is enough. Psychology teaches you that attachment styles, neural pathways, and emotional responses are not failings. They are maps. They are guides showing where your care is misplaced, where your nervous system is seeking home, where your heart confuses spike for warmth. And in this quiet mapping, you start to rewrite your narrative. Love is not explosive, it is sustaining. Love does not demand self-erasure. It celebrates presence. Love is not fear. It is safety. You imagine a version of yourself where intensity is met with reflection, where thrill is met with curiosity, where absence is met with self-compassion. You imagine the slow unfolding of connection that does not burn you out but lifts you, that honors boundaries as sacred, that transforms longing into reciprocity. Psychology whispers of neuroplasticity. Your brain can learn to recognize steady warmth as significance, to interpret calm as intimacy, to feel fulfillment in predictability and mutual care. The pathways that once reinforced chaos can be rewired toward stillness, toward noticing the subtle gestures that carry meaning across months and years rather than moments. You visualize the slow rhythm of someone walking beside you, someone whose presence is consistent, whose respect is enduring, whose care is measured not in intensity but in attention. And you realize that the love you long for has always existed in the quiet recognition of your own worth. In these cinematic moments of self-reflection, your mind begins to soften. You notice the sunlight spilling across your room, the muted hum of the city outside, the gentle cadence of your own breath. You feel the pull of intensity fading, replaced by the tender weight of presence. You feel your nervous system, once wired for spikes, recalibrating to rhythm. You realize that the stories of your heart, once dominated by fire, now have space for warmth. You see the difference between craving and connection, between longing and love, between intensity and intimacy. Your body, your mind, your heart. All are learning the language of care that is gentle, sustaining, and true. You recognize that your past misunderstandings were never failings. They were signposts, guiding you toward self-awareness, toward reflection, toward gentleness. You honor the journey that led you here, the intensity that taught you discernment, the longing that taught you boundaries, the chaos that taught you calm. And in this honor, you feel a deep relief. Love is not something to chase in the fire. It is something to nurture in the quiet, steady light of understanding. You carry this awareness into your relationships, into the way you approach connection. You notice when someone's words unsettle your mind, when their actions demand sacrifice, when intensity masquerades as care. You pause, breathe, and recalibrate. You remember the science of attachment, the rhythm of the nervous system, the chemistry of emotions, and you allow your mind to distinguish between rush and trust, between passion and presence, between spike and stability. You practice self-compassion, observing that wanting intensity is human, that seeking thrill is not a flaw, that your nervous system's cravings are always survival mechanisms, not errors. You witness yourself with curiosity, with patience, with softness, and you begin to respond to life, not react. You realize that your capacity to discern, to reflect, to set boundaries, and to honor your own calm is the truest expression of love. Love for yourself, love for others, love for the quiet rhythms that sustain us all. And so, in this quiet cinematic journey of mind and heart, you finally understand intensity is not love. Intensity is a signal. It is a teacher, a compass, a mirror. It shows where your needs have been unmet, where your nervous system has been overstimulated, where your heart has conflated excitement with attachment. True love, the kind that nourishes and endures, is steady, calm, reciprocal, and respectful. It is in the way someone notices you over time, not the way they chase you in fevered bursts. It is in the moments of calm conversation, in the shared silences, in the consistent attention to your well-being. It is present when intensity fades, when chaos subsides, when adrenaline no longer dictates your sense of connection. You realize that what you longed for all along was never in the storm. It was in the soft, sustaining light of mutual care, in the quiet knowledge that someone can love you without burning you, without demanding, without consuming. And this realization, tender and soft, is enough. Because now, you feel your mind settling. You feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. You notice the warmth in your hands, the quiet hum of awareness in your thoughts. You understand the 5 signs, the patterns, the misinterpretations. You know how intensity can be seductive, how thrill can be mistaken for devotion, how drama can masquerade as intimacy, how fear of solitude can be mistaken for love, how memory can play tricks on your longing. And yet, you also know that knowledge is freedom. Awareness is sanctuary. Reflection is tenderness. You have the tools to see, to pause, to nurture, to distinguish, to heal. And in this gentle cinematic space, you breathe. You are learning, unlearning, becoming. You are witnessing yourself with curiosity, with care, with patience. And in the quiet glow of self-awareness, you understand that love, true love, is not a spark, a jolt, or a storm. It is a calm, steady, sustaining light. And now, finally, you know how to recognize it.